Happy New Year, and today is Wednesday, January 10th. I'm joined by my colleagues, council members Mitchell Farrell and David Roos. Thank you all for being here. I've got a lot of cards here and a pretty heavy agenda, so we want to try to get through this expeditiously. With that, there are two items, colleagues, that we're not going to hear today. Item 1, we're going to hold in committee and request a report back from the police department in 30 days. So we're not going to hear that. So if there's anybody with cards on that, and I don't believe there are except for the ones that had filled out cards on every item, we're not going to hear that. The same with item 2. We have a request from the city attorney to go ahead and continue that at this time. So we're going to continue that and take that off the desk at this point as well. The remaining items I've got for consent, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, with the exception of cards from 2 people on those. And then we'll go ahead and hear items 3, 5, and 8. So we'll jump right into it. We've got, there are a number of folks here who have filled out multiple cards for multiple items. It appears that some folks had filled out cards for item 5 and also put a request in for general public comment. So I just want to let you know on the general public comment, you can speak about anything that is only under the purview of this committee that's not on the agenda. So if you filled out 2 cards hoping that you would have 2 options to speak on the same item, it's not the case. So I know a lot of people that don't know all the rules do that thinking that they'll have another opportunity at general public comment, but it's actually the item itself and then only items under the purview of this committee for general public comment that's not on the agenda. And so that's how general public comment works. And so when we get to item 5, we'll do that before we do general public comment. You can let me know, or I'll know if you filled out both cards. We have them grouped because we have a great clerk that we'll walk you through it and figure out what you want to do at that point, because we'll have other items after 5 that are going to require quite a bit of time as well, just to let you know. So with that, for multiple cards and general public comment, those are a minute each and then 1 minute, so 2-minute maximum with a 1 minute for general public comment. So Mr. Previn, you've got a card on 2, which we're not hearing today. Item 4, 6, 12, 8. So you got 2 minutes for those, 4, 6, 12, and 8, and then 1 minute for general public comment.
Okay, it's Eric Previn from Studio City, CD2. I'm an occasional writer, and I'm an advocate for open transparency and public transparency and open government. The fire department item number 8 is the commissioners are setting aside for the fiscal year 2016 staffing and adequate fire emergency response. It's a grant, and I absolutely am supportive of this, and this is for the previous year, so it's actually sort of de rigueur. I just want to make clear that when the fire department are combating these fires, which have been ravaging the area, and I noticed on the city council agenda, we're trying to declare a state of emergency for some of those where there was a lot of damage. They do their very best, and they do a great job, and I'm incredibly supportive of the work they do, and they often make a determination or a preliminary determination about the cause of a fire. And whereas I know they're trying, and they always make it clear that it's preliminary. I'm concerned that members of the media here in Los Angeles occasionally amplify what is preliminary into something that's not preliminary. And it puts pressure on, I think, the population. In the case of the Skirball fire I'm thinking about, obviously, was, the homeless population, who it was kind of alleged that it was a cooking fire. But then when, the smoke cleared, it wasn't so clear that they had a real lead. And it's a real... there's a disconnect between the media and the hard work of the fire department. So I raise up the possibility of, being especially careful with regard to the preliminary status, if that's, something that's in question. Because I was feeling over the holiday time some anxiety about how there was just a slight worsening feeling about people who are experiencing homeless, and it bummed me out. Now, the other item I want to talk about is the hate crime item, or the one where we're looking at racially motivated violence and all that stuff. I find that,
Now you're now on your general public comment.
okay, so you don't want me to talk about that, or you don't care because you're flexible. Fine. So this is a significant concern, obviously, but I looked at the report myself, and whereas it's gone around again with the media that there's an amplification of this kind of crime in Los Angeles, when you look closely at the details, which evidently Mike Fior and others who started singing a song didn't, it's not as bad as we all think, which is the great news, because nobody, certainly this group, is against that kind of horrible hate violence, and so am I.
Again, you got to speak general public comment for items that are not on the agenda.
Then let's call it a general public comment about hate violence.
We have that on the agenda, so general public comment about
Sir,
the agenda.
fair enough. You've outsmarted me.
Thank you.
So in general public comment, I would say it was this hall in which you tried to have me removed for taking off point. So this is the kind of catch-22 that you've created here, which I don't appreciate. But let's have a good year. Happy New Year.
All right. Herman, you have a card on every item. And so you've got 3 minutes, 2 on the agenda items, with the exception of items 1 and 2, and then 1 minute for general public comment. And remind you of the rules of, well, you know all the rules, so, okay.
So now that we have a commission report on the staffing of adequate fire emergency, we need to thank the fire chief who's standing in the back here for all his hard work and endeavorness to get all those safety crews out there to prevent more serious harm against the public for those fires. And since this is a grant hiring of firefighters, on the flip side of this, I just want to know that there is still racism and prejudice in the hiring of adequate firefighters who qualify, because they first put their nepotism family members in first before allowing public interests of other concerns to be addressed for the same hiring of activity and category, also referred to Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee. Woof, woof. Then I go into the other item, which is item 15, in which, in regards to Board of Police Commissioners report relative to acceptance of a donation and excess of military property. Well, you see, I'm wearing my military property. Hoorah. And since belts and fuel, handler gloves, and cold weather shirts are things of need for the homeless, including medical and surgical lights, yeah, this way, if they have appropriate lighting, they wouldn't start the fires on the hillside, in reference to those who are homeless in the city of Los Angeles. And the Department of Defense, federal dollars are being abused excessively by the city of Los Angeles not to get the HHH and Assembly bill monies in action of the police commissioner's report. Now my general public comment. Did you all know that there is a police permit review panel? Did you all know that at Inland Restaurant in Ventura, doing business as the Spearmint Rhino under PPRP number 17/0037 for the record, located at 15004 Oxnard Street, Van Nuys, California 91411, Police Commission. Did you know that Richard T. Fank, who's in this room with me today, is aware that women were fucking their clients on those chairs in that business or restaurant / so to speak? And this is a result of poor, inappropriate sexual misconduct by the city of Los Angeles, allowing these so-called pimp institutions under the Spearmint Rhino to disguise and fuck your husbands and fuck your girlfriends behind closed doors. And you get to pay for it. So that's pathetic. And Englander, you're the worst Jew of them all.
So is there anybody who has never been here before? I want to welcome you to your perhaps first exposure to public comment and the First Amendment, our rights to speak on to the government on almost anything that may or may not come across your mind, or the minds of others. And with that, I welcome you, and often apologize for that as well. But we follow the spirit and the letter of the law under the First Amendment. We allow you to speak your mind. With that, thank you for your patience in that. Colleagues, so we'll go ahead and that concludes items 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. If we can go ahead and move those items, we'll go ahead and move those as approved.
5?
Excuse me?
You said 5?
No, we're going to hear items 3, 5, and 8. Yeah. I wouldn't do that to you. Okay. And in fact, with that, we're going to go ahead and take item 5. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak on item 5 that has not filled out a card? Okay. Since we're going to go ahead and open up the public comment on item 5, we're going to close the submission of cards for that then, since everybody that is here that wishes to speak on that item has already filled out a card? And you haven't submitted one yet? Okay. So if you can come on up and submit a card and give it to the clerk. Okay. So with the exception of that one individual. Okay. And then for those of you who came late that filled out a card for both, and there were a couple, after I made the announcement on item 5, they also filled out a general public comment card. We'll be holding the general public comment after we finish the rest of the agenda. And that'll be on items that are other than item 5, that are not on the agenda for general public comment. So I'll ask you when you come up. In addition to that, in the effort to, well, put it this way. Some of you, your handwriting is, well, all of you, I think your handwriting is much better than mine. But I can't read my own writing sometimes. So with that, if I get some of your names wrong, and what I might do is, for those of you who have filled out cards, I will trust that I will get through them all. I want to make sure that I get through them all. But I'll trust you to correct if I get it wrong, and I apologize. So we'll start off with, is it Ashma? Ahmed? And we're going to have all 4 people come up at a time. Sarah Dar, California Climate Policy Center, or Alignment? Or Immigrant. I'm, again, trying to read writing. Labani. Okay, and then all of you have also filled out both cards. So I'll ask you if you can just let me know that you only wanted to speak on item 5, or if you wanted to wait till the end of the meeting, and I can hold your card aside for general public comment as well. So if you can go ahead and introduce yourselves, you get a minute on item 5 each.
So do I say right now that I only want to speak on item 5?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Only on item 5? Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Asma Ahmed. I'm with the Council on American Islamic Relations. We often hear the argument from pro-CVEers, usually people from the...
Excuse me for 1 second. If you disrupt this meeting again, Herman, you're going to be asked to leave. One more shout out or disruption from this meeting from the audience, and you're going to be asked to leave. Okay? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. So we often hear the argument from pro-CVEers, usually from the mayor's office and people from organizations who are receiving CVE money from the mayor's office, that CVE started under the Obama administration and therefore it must be all right. However, we do know that Obama deported a record number of immigrants and that many of the policies and practices under the Obama administration were divisive, discriminatory, and extremely harmful to the American people. So the argument that CVE as an
Excuse me for 1 second. Sergeants, if you can please escort Herman out for disrupting the meeting again. It's clapping, yelling out, making noises. It's disrupting the meeting. So, okay, you know the rules. There's no clapping in the middle. Okay. You know all the rules, and I've told you. You're here at every single meeting, at every single council meeting. So, thank you. Just hold your time. We'll hold your time. I apologize. He does this at almost every meeting.
I tell it to your face.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chair, the clock should be at 25 seconds.
Yeah, well, go ahead and put,
Harassment is intolerable.
can you reset the clock at 30 seconds, please?
Harassing women in your office.
No,
It's only a minute.
okay, we'll let you continue after. That's fine, no problem. We'll give you a few seconds afterwards. Okay, thank you very much. I apologize for that. Thank you.
Okay. So as I was saying, many of the policies that came under the Obama administration were divisive and discriminatory. And so the argument that CVE as an Obama-era program is okay is not valid and not true. But what is true is that CVE under the Trump administration is going to be 10 times worse. How can I say that? I can say that by looking at the past year that we have just lived through, the first year of the Trump administration. So let's take a look at what we've seen in 2017 and the first year of the Trump administration. We've seen the elimination of DACA. We've seen ending of TPS. We've seen Muslim bans 1, 2, and 3. We've seen the trans military ban. We've seen ICE raids. We've seen attacks on sanctuary cities. So when I tell you that CVE under the Trump administration is going to criminalize, detain, surveil, profile,
I got to ask you to wrap it up.
and discriminate against Black, Brown, immigrant, and Muslim communities like never before, you should believe me.
Right.
And
Thank
my
you very
final
much.
thing is
Thank you
just
very much.
that
I've got to. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to make sure we get through everybody's 1 minute as well. Try to equally. I gave you
Okay, thank
certainly a lot more time. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Sarah. I'm here with the California Immigrant Policy Center, CIPC. My organization fought tooth and nail this year to help get SB 54 passed, which essentially the premise that bill was fighting back against was the criminalization of immigrant communities, stopping them from being put into a situation of double jeopardy where they were already having paid the consequences for a criminal offense that was now being tied to immigration enforcement that was unrelated to their criminal violation. So I'm sure everyone here, as members of the Public Safety Subcommittee, are familiar with the problem of criminalization of communities of color, of immigrant communities, of Black communities, and of Muslim communities. And so my request essentially is that before we move forward on accepting this money and entering into this program is more transparency, a little bit more information made available to the communities that are going to be directly impacted by this, and a chance for us to do a cost-benefit analysis of is there evidence that this is actually going to prevent people from becoming violent extremists? And what are the costs of criminalizing our communities and putting that framework
Right.
Tied to this money?
Right. And your general public comment card, did you want to, you're good on that? Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Laboni Hawk. I'm the litigation director at Asian Americans Advancing Justice. I'm here before you both as a civil rights lawyer as well as an impacted community member. I myself am a Muslim American. We are here today in great force to tell you that there is huge community opposition to this program, CVE, that's before you. We've provided materials to various council members, and we really do hope you read them and consider them. I'll just summarize quickly. CVE is a program that targets Muslim communities, and you'll see people here trying to tell you that that's not true and that there are other groups that have been added. You cannot look at it that way. It's like the Muslim ban. If you add a couple of other countries that are maybe not Muslim majority, it's still a discriminatory ban, and this program is still a program that targets Muslim communities. It has not shown to be effective. There's no evidence that you can identify people down the path to radicalization. We ask you to take a really good look at the reports that are out there. And finally, we just still don't know enough about the mayor's policy. We have a number of sub-grantees here before you.
I need to
we have
wrap
no
it up.
idea what they're going to be doing, whether what they're going to be doing is going to be protected.
I have to treat everybody equally on it across the board. So if I could please ask you all, I really, for me, the worst thing to do is cut off a public speaker because I want you to try to get your thoughts in. So if you could just monitor the clock on your own, it would be really helpful. Thank you. Morning.
Hello, my name is Nishat Ahmed. I'm an ex-attorney and a present small businessman. We all come to this great nation to pursue our dreams and goals. And I'd like to quote Oprah Winfrey, who could be the next president, God knows best, when she says, we have bills to pay, children to feed, and dreams to pursue. And just because we walk around with a hijab or a beard, please do not categorize as terrorists. They're not. We're just ordinary American citizens who are here, educated, hardworking, tax-paying, law-abiding citizens like everybody else. We are middle-class people. So please spare us. Do not categorize us. Don't put a stamp on us. And the First Amendment is clearly stipulates that the faith and speech, freedom of speech, to be preserved for every human being, which is one of the greatest reasons we Americans love to live here in free spirit.
Thank you. And then on your
not enough research enough to determine and evidence to prove beyond.
Thank you. It's your time. A question on your general public comment card. Did you want to
five? Completely about five.
Did you want to stay?
I'm obviously against it because of the lack of.
No, okay, sir. Yeah, but your time is up.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay. Next for Hamon, the Swana Alliance, followed by Omar, Palestinian Youth, Neff Rogers, and Celine Quisino, or Quisini. Good morning.
Good morning. Is I start right now?
Yes.
My name is Hamoun. I would like to ask you all a question. How many times have you been called a terrorist? Well, I lost count the first week that I arrived in the United States. I would like you to know that Muslims are already seen as criminals, and we are guilty until proven innocent. And this CVE will further criminalize our communities, and there is no evidence that spying in this community is going to prevent terrorism. But there is evidence that this leads to further isolation, this leads to further criminalization of our communities. And I really urge you to vote against it. This is hard, 1 minute. And this is, for me, a beginning of a Muslim registry. You have seen the precedents under this administration, and you know that this will eventually lead to worse things, and there is a rise in hate crimes against Muslims, so I really want you to take this consider. And if you don't, I want you to know that you're responsible for the pain of Muslim community.
Right, thank you. And your general public comment card, did you want to wait till after the meeting, or you're good with that?
I'll wait until after.
So you want to speak on general public? Okay. Morning.
Hi, I'm Omar Zaza. I'm here with Palestinian Youth Movement, and I'm here as an Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian calling for the city of Los Angeles to say no to this most recent grant through the Department of Homeland Security's Countering Violent Extremism program. I constitute but one of the many bodies and constellations of identities that are criminalized through the CVE program, which uses the nonsensical and officially debunked radicalization theory to determine what constitutes extremism. But even a cursory glance at the criteria will show that they are meaningless and represent a bizarre collision between markers of religious enthusiasm and political critique. CVE is thus only the latest outgrowth of a long-standing pattern of officially sanctioned structural racism and Islamophobia that has long targeted our communities even before September 11th, particularly around critiques of U.S. empire and imperialism and Israeli colonial violence since 1967, as well as denouncements of the settler colonialism and white supremacy integral to this nation. CVE is not safe. It has no space in our community. Thanks.
Thank you. And on your general public comment card?
I'm okay without.
You're good. Okay. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Celine from Palestinian Youth Movement of Los Angeles. As youth with the large Arab and Arab Muslim community in LA County, the safety, well-being, religious, and political freedom of our loved ones is our primary concern. Hidden under the seemingly well-intentioned mask of CVE are a series of conditions, stipulations, and tools of surveillance that work towards isolating our communities based on racist, stereotypical, and politically motivated techniques. CVE grant money actually criminalizes our spiritual practices and our freedom of speech and expression, and chains its acceptors into reporting and criminalizing any expression of political activity, which is a violation of our civil rights and religious freedoms. CVE implies that our communities themselves are the risk. This discriminatory grant will put our communities, including incoming refugee communities, in an unnecessarily vulnerable position. Because CVE allows for the criminalization of a dangerously vague and broad spectrum of activities and speech, immigrant and refugee communities will be among those especially affected. LA City Council approved the sanctuary label, but to accept this grant would place a huge barrier on actualizing the reality of a sanctuary city. Criminalization already disproportionately affects Muslim, Black, and Brown communities, and this grant will only advance efforts to criminalize activities that are, once again, dangerously vague and that include some of our daily spiritual practices and civil rights.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Neff, and I'm here on behalf of MSA West. MSA West is an umbrella organization of Muslim student groups from 32 college campuses around the West Coast. I want to express grave concerns with the federal government's countering violent extremism program. As Americans, we support initiatives that engage our communities to enhance well-being and security. The CVE program, however, reinforces the erroneous narrative that Muslims are security threats, as well as creates a climate of fear through surveillance, especially among Muslim youth. Not only does the CVE framework disproportionately focus on Muslims, it targets black and brown communities and functions to further criminalize and villainize these communities. This framework reminds us of actions like COINTELPRO that have been used to undermine self-determination and self-identity of these communities. Furthermore, the CVE framework is rooted in the flawed radicalization theory, which claims that there is a fixed trajectory to radicalization with indicators that, if detected early on, can be interrupted through intervention. These so-called radicalization signs discourage Muslims from practicing their faith.
Thank you. And your general public comment card? You're good. Okay. Thank you. Marisala Saba, followed by Masai Faladi. Messiah Faladi. No. Followed by, and that was with, it's like, with care.
Yeah, Master.
Yep, okay.
Thank you.
And Lemba with the Asian American Advancing Justice. And Hidab Tarifi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. I echo everyone in the room who has spoken strongly against CVE, rightfully so. I was born, fortunately, Palestinian and Mexicana, born in Los Angeles. It wasn't far too long before I noticed that I am part of a community that is targeted for my body, for my lineage, for my blood, for my land. So I am here honoring our people and speaking up against yet another racist, discriminatory program. With my lineage too, I had no other choice but to resist and to fight for liberation. That is also another targeted identity. As a youth of color, I embraced the word radical, as Sherry Moraga and Gloria Ansaldúa shared it in The Bridge Called My Back. This CVE program also targets our mental health, and it co-opts words like mental health, like safety, like radical. It is completely wrong, and 1 minute is not enough to express how horrible this is. Do not pass it. CVE is not safe and has no place in our community.
And can you state your name?
My name is Mariela Saba.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Nasir Fuladi. I'm the Advocacy Manager at the Council on American Islamic Relations. Despite claims that LA's CVE program does not target Muslim communities, the CVE program funded by LA and piloted exclusively focused on the Muslim community. I have taken calls from religious leaders and parents as the head of the Civil Rights Department who discovered within 10 to 15 minutes of a supposed mental health program that their children between the ages of 8 and 18 were being asked why and how often do they interact with federal law enforcement. Additionally, the individuals in favor of CVE often cite the Privacy Act protections and the Constitution. Everyone familiar with the Privacy Act would know there are broad sweeping exceptions to it that make it meaningless in this scenario. Additionally, the Constitution allowed for internment of Japanese Americans, and unfortunately that's still good standing law with the Supreme Court. Those kind of exceptions, those kind of rulings are not going to protect the Muslim community. Lastly, the vast majority of Muslims, including the Shura Council of Southern California, voted unanimously against CVE. Thank you.
And what did you wish to do with your general public comment card?
I'd like to make the general comment at the end.
You'd still like to wait? Okay.
Yes.
No problem. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Lamba Najib, and I'm with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Los Angeles, and I'm here to discuss CVE. The CVE program stigmatizes the Muslim community, furthering Islamophobia in our society. This focus on American Muslims alienates them from the rest of the American society. Mayor Garcetti's office claims that the CVE programs are community-based and community-driven, but the drivers of this program are the DHS, DOJ, and law enforcement. This prominent role of law enforcement raises the troubling prospect that the programs will serve as a conduit for surveillance and intelligence gathering. As a member of the Muslim community myself, we were not consulted, and I'm here to say that our community opposes the CVE program, and we urge the City Council, the Public Safety Committee, and the council members to hear our voices. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, and on your general public comment?
Yes.
I
would wait till the end, yeah.
You'll wait till the end as well? Okay.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Hidab Tarifi. I am the chairperson of the Board of Directors for the Islamic Center of Southern California. And I share everybody's concerns, but I'm here to tell you a different story. The Islamic Center of Southern California indirectly did receive funds from the mayor's office for the last 18 months to sponsor a program of mental health. And the money was put to good use to help with different issues that the community had. It was all community-based. There were no law enforcement involved. And we were in control. I understand the mayor is receiving money from the Homeland Security, but I trust that the mayor will not do anything harmful to the Muslim community. We have a good relationship with the mayor, and we trust that he will do the right thing in supporting what is needed, and that is mental health. And thank you for the time.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, our next panel is Adam Smith, followed by Ishmael Marcus, all good, Carolyn Rojo, and Ishraq Ali. Good morning.
Good morning.
Greetings. Greetings.
My name is Adam Smith. Despite the stated intentions of the CVE program, law enforcement agencies will use this program to gather information on anybody it believes to be a so-called threat, whether that person is targeted for being Muslim, a student activist, a Black Lives Matter protester, or someone who just happens to think that the FBI's long history of entrapment is counterproductive to national security interests of the United States. This program will simply be yet another way for the state, by exploiting the fears and biases of the general public, to further surveil and criminalize already marginalized communities here in Los Angeles. As a country founded in white supremacy and still rooted deeply in it, these government agencies and law enforcement in general have a well-documented history of racism, and programs like CVE actually work to perpetuate stereotypes and biases that serve to further foster an environment that produces actual terrorists, like Wade Michael Page, the white supremacist that killed 6 Sikh worshippers in Wisconsin in 2012, and like Dylan Roof, the white supremacist murderer of 9 African American. That's it? Jesus.
Yeah, it goes quick. You got a lot in.
5 seconds.
Okay.
As we've seen since the election of Donald Trump across the country and here in LA, there's been an increased amount of violence against Muslims, Jews, black and brown folks, and this program will only exacerbate that. In the interest of anti-racism and true public safety for everyone.
Otherwise, I've got to do the same thing for all, so I've got to be equal to everyone. So thank you very much. And I want to follow the rules, and if you yell out again, I've got to ask you to leave, like I did the previous person, unfortunately. So thank you. Good morning. Yes.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Ishmael Marcus Allgood of Isla, LA, located on 2900 West Slauson Avenue in South Los Angeles. With number 45, the 45th President's decision to focus the Countering Violent Extremism program solely on Islamic extremism, it compels me to speak out because I'm black and I'm Muslim. The CVE is remnant of the program that existed in black communities. Like CONTELPRO, the CVE divides the community and perpetuates fear. It does not make us safer. The goal of the CVE is to de-radicalize, quote unquote, Muslim. What does that really mean? I pray 5 times a day. Does that mean I'm radicalized? If I speak out on social justice issues, am I radicalized? If I fast during the month of Ramadan, am I radicalized? If I have any kind of criticism of America, is that radicalization? That's my concern.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Rojo. I'm a partner with Social Venture Partners. I am not Muslim. I am here as a citizen and Angelino in solidarity with Vigilant Love and the other organizations here speaking out against accepting this grant. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Before I get my time, can I defer my time to the...
We can't defer time to other folks.
Fair enough, that works. So I'm good to go. So good morning. I'm Ishraq Ali. I'm actually the organizing director for Empower Change, a grassroots Muslim organizing group. So, I don't doubt some of the organizations that are receiving this funding and that they're doing good work. But my question is, asserting where is this framework? The CVE framework under this president is problematic. We know there's been this huge anti-Muslim Islamophobic rhetoric leading up to his campaign, leading through his campaign right now. And with No Muslim Ban Ever and all these issues that are happening with the Muslim community, CVE is just falling into that framework. And my question is, and I want to actually echo what Laboni had said, is that we want to see a little bit more transparency with how is the city going to be using this funding? What kind of mechanisms are there for security or the law enforcement being involved in the community? I think from this, as a member of the city of LA or a community member, I'd like to see that transparency from the city of how the CVE funding is actually being used. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panel is IE, followed by Israha, Ahmed, Heather Laird, and Christine Morgoda. You're going to help me out on these, I know. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And so if we missed, looks like we missed one. So is that 2180 West Crescent Avenue? Somebody has that address? No? Ashra Hamid? It's hard to read the writing.
Yeah, Ashra Hamid.
That's one. I did see a few folks step out, or some people might have used the restroom, but okay. Then I'll ask another one. Nadia Khan? Good morning.
Good morning. So my name is Eli Tiscareño. I'm from the San Fernando Valley, and I work with American Friends Service Committee, which is an organization working towards peace and justice. I'm not Muslim, but I come in solidarity. This grant does not increase safety, but will increase stigmatization and discrimination based on personal beliefs and practices. It's based on a false belief that it can decrease radicalization and acts of extremism when in reality does the opposite. Hate crimes are on the rise, and CVE will increase violence and hate towards our Muslim, immigrant, refugee, black, and brown community members. Nationwide research shows that white supremacists are the #1 group to commit acts of terror, yet we are here reviewing a grant that increases discrimination of people based on ignorance and fear and lies that these hate groups and federal government are promoting. So I say that CVE is a racist tactic to discriminate, increase division, Islamophobia, and intergenerational trauma. CVE is dangerous and has no place in our community, so please vote no today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Nadia. I'm here to uplift my voice, the voice of teachers, the voice of youth. When I was looking on the agenda, I noticed there's a section for community impact statement, and it said none submitted. Of course, we found out about this late, and so now that we had to Google the process, of course not expecting it to be told to us, we now know the process. However, everything we are saying today is our community statement. I'd like to talk about the history of these types of ineffective and criminalizing programs. We've had the war on gangs, we've had the war on drugs, and even during those times, people were saying these are not only ineffective in keeping us safe, but they criminalize youth. And finally now, academia, the city is realizing, oh, they were bad. So right now we are here telling you that CVE will criminalize and has been criminalizing black and brown people and youth, and we will not stand for it. So do not wait till years later to go back and say, oh, you all were right, just like you did with the war on drugs and with the war on gangs. I do not trust the mayor, nor do I trust this rubber stamp body, so that's why I'm here to say, we are not here to expect a policy nor transparency. We demand transparency
Thank you.
through Public Records Act request.
Thank you.
We do not expect you all to be
Thank you very
transparent
much.
with us. So we will keep
Thank you.
demanding information
I've
about
got to
domestic
call your
violence.
time on that. Thank you very much.
CVE does not make us safe and has no place in our community.
So what I'm going to start doing is, since if we can't follow the clock, we really need to do that, is start the next minute, and you'll be taking the next speaker's time. So it'll be up to you two to work it out. So thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Heather Laird, and I am here today to speak on behalf of the pilot program that we have already conducted with CVE. Well, this wasn't a CVE sponsored, but sponsored by the mayor's office for this continued grant of the CVE grant. With the pilot program, we did something unique here in LA that has not been done around the country. Although I sympathize and empathize with all that have spoken previously about the social justice issues that we have, in LA we were actually able to work with the mayor's office. These organizations and others were invited to work in collaboration with the mayor's office on this issue. We created a unique situation where we have a new public health model, a new model to address this issue that's an alternative to law enforcement heavy models. And it's community-led, it's community-driven, and we've been able to, if I could just say one last thing, which is that some of what's been mentioned previously about what's been asked of people in these sessions, I am the therapist who met with a lot of these people. I never once asked, any of the things that have been claimed that have been asked of these people.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, council members. My name is Christine Margiata. I'm the Executive Director of Social Venture Partners Los Angeles, and I'm here today in solidarity with Vigilant Love and their allies in the Muslim community. Over the last decade, I've had the privilege of working with each of you in the fight to end homelessness. Through that work, we learned to stand up with marginalized communities and listen to their voices, even when that perspective wasn't a popular one. The city was fighting to end homelessness a decade ago when it wasn't the trend. In my personal life as a gay Angelino, the city stood with us fighting for same-sex marriage and rights for LGBT people, even when it wasn't popular. And I'm asking you to do the same thing today. I urge you to not accept these funds and to listen to the voices of the Muslim community and to find other ways to resource the programs that provide mental health and other supportive services other than through these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next panel is Yasmin Kadir, Rafiq Hussain, Scott Doyle, and Nashe Ahmed. It looks like we're missing one of those. So I'll call the next one, Graciela Lopez. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. So my name is Yasmin Kadir. I'm here with Muslims for Progressive Values, or MPV. And I'm here to say that we wholeheartedly support the city's use of the DHS CVE grant to fund programming aimed at preventing and countering violent extremism in LA. To ignore the rampant rise in violent extremism, not limited to radical theology, but including white supremacy, anti-Islam, and neo-Nazism, would be irresponsible. As an American organization concerned with human rights issues perpetuated in the name of Islam, preventing and countering violent extremism is a top priority for us and a critical component achieving an egalitarian society. Due to systemic oppression and prejudices towards marginalized communities, many constituents of LA fear these funds will contribute to continued targeting of Muslims, brown and black individuals, or groups. While this fear is reasonable and understood, it is misplaced. MPV's close working relationship with the mayor's office for the past 4 years allows us to contest these assumptions, particularly as a Muslim organization who is a not beneficiary of this grant. So we do recommend the council members approve and accept this grant.
Great, thank you very much.
Good morning, my name is Rafiq Hussain. I'm from the Muslim Student Association of UCLA. The basic argument that I would make against CVE is that it simply doesn't work. There is no evidence that the indicators for radicalization outlined in the CVE program can reliably predict acts of terror. In fact, it betrays a complete lack of understanding of Islam and Islamic thought. The program simply serves to stigmatize the Muslim community and Muslim youth, like myself, and build mistrust between law enforcement and the community. It's not often that we find ourselves in a historical moment to do the right thing. So I would urge the members of this committee to stand on the right side of history and to reject the hatred and bigotry as this council has done before, and to reject CVE. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. As a previous speaker indicated, this program has a problematic history that predates this administration. It is based on junk science, on the causes and indications of radicalization. People love to say, if you see something, say something. The problem is we see what we are looking for, and this program is an instruction manual on looking for all the wrong things. If the program is problematic before, it is indefensible under this administration, which from day one has been the source of policy and rhetoric that is xenophobic generally and and Islamophobic specifically. Just a few statements from our president. We have a problem in this country. It's called Muslims. They're going to have to work with us. They're going to have to turn in the people that are bombing the planes. They know who those people are. I think Islam hates us. This money is poison is fruit of the poison tree. It's dirty money, and I urge you to just say no.
Thank you. And your name again for the record?
Scott Doyle.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Graciela Lopez, an organizer with the California Immigrant Policy Center. I'm here today to express my discontent and my opposition to the CVE grant. We know that our communities of color are already surveilled, criminalized, and incarcerated. Programs such as the CVE are deemed to be unethical because they are disguised under the impression that they're going to be assisting and benefiting communities with social services, while in the meantime it has the main goal of further criminalizing folks. Again, this is a program that is, fueled with hate and misunderstanding of the Muslim community. It is really important that the monies do not be allocated.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you all. Quasi. And then the other two the names I'd already called, I'll call again. Ashura Ahmed and Nashe Ahmed. No longer here. Okay, so I've called your other cards twice, so then you're our final speaker on this.
My name is Kwasi Nkrumah. I'm the co-chair of the Martin Luther King Coalition of Greater Los Angeles. When the Nazis took over Germany, they convinced a lot of people that the Jewish people were a threat to the security of the state. And they used every instrument of the state to begin to lay the process for what later became known as the Holocaust. We are currently in a situation where our national government is controlled by people who are openly aligned with fascist movements in the United States, historic terrorist movements such as the KKK and others. And we have a history in the 1960s and 70s of a program called COINTELPRO, which was specifically directed against African American activists throughout the United States to crush the black justice movement in this country. What many people don't realize is that the COINTEL program actually was initiated by Mr. Hoover, who was a hardcore segregationist against Martin Luther King himself. And the largest file in existence at the end of that program was not the Black Panther Party, wasn't Malcolm X, wasn't anybody else who were not terrorists but advocates of armed self-defense. The largest file was kept on Dr. King, and we know that extensive work was done to destroy his work in the movement. We are proud of the fact that our city has taken a position of not cooperating with this government to repress immigrant groups in our city.
Okay, thank you.
We think you need to take the same position in regard to this funding, and don't play the role that the Nazis got local leaders, even in the Jewish community, to play.
Thank you. I got to wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the general public comment, so we're going to go ahead and close general public comment. I know we have folks from the mayor's office. If you can come on up. For those who filled out cards who came in late, your cards will be on file as that you were here and on record as filling out cards, so of course.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes.
Good morning. So,
And if you could state your name for the record.
sure. My name is Jumana Silian Saba. I'm in the Mayor's Office of Public Safety. I am currently the Director of the Programming in Building Healthy Communities. Much of the programming under the Mayor's Office is very much focused on the best interest of our communities. Over the past several years, the Mayor's Office has not only engaged communities, both Muslim, non-Muslim, and across the board, but we have actually heard all the concerns, and not only heard them, we have acted up on them. Over and over again, we've heard that law enforcement practices are not only harmful, but also detrimental to the well-being of our community. Over and over again, and we've heard that practices that promote Islamophobia, that promote hate and racism are harmful to our community. Throughout our engagement, we have taken these criticisms and we have turned those around into programming that actually supports the community. We've created this space to build this in the social domain where we are investing in our community-based organizations to address issues of hate, bias, extremism, and ultimately leading to violence. But more importantly, our work is not based on theories of radicalization. We have, in fact, not only rejected theories of radicalization, we have worked with experts in the public health, and we are implementing a public health model that promotes protective factors. Those protective factors are primarily ensuring, at the broader level, that we have social cohesion, that we promote positive intergroup relations, but furthermore, that the programming is addressing needs of individuals and families. Culturally appropriate services, if I might add. We know that based on research, a public health approach is the best way to not only improve public safety, but to improve the well-being of our community. Mayor Garcetti has been at the forefront of advocating for not only the Muslim community, but all communities who have been adversely impacted by this administration. He was personally on the grounds at LAX when the Muslim ban came out. He has personally visited not only the Islamic Center of Southern California, but multiple Islamic organizations. I know Councilmember O'Farrell and Councilmember Englander have both been standing by the sides of our Muslim communities at the Islamic Center anytime there was hate or act of violence that were perpetrated against our Muslim community. So to say that our city leadership and our mayor does not stand with the Muslim community, with our immigrant community, with communities from across the board is truly an ill-informed statement. The programming under this grant will not be collecting any personal identifying information. Under the DHS grant, we are not required by this grant to collect personal information. Names, addresses of individuals who will be receiving services from this programming will not be collected. It will be very clearly stated in our contracts. Moreover, and some of the speakers alluded to the Privacy Act, but beyond the Privacy Act, the city is not collecting information. In addition, HIPAA does apply, particularly in programs that provide mental health. Some of the programming that will be funded in this grant will provide mental health. You heard from Dr. Heather Laird, who headed the Safe Spaces program. The mayor's office piloted the Safe Spaces program as a proof of concept. It is not funded through any CVE funding. In piloting the program, we have not only identified gaps of services, but more importantly, we have identified that there is tremendous need for those services in the community. The program reached about 4,000 people, served nearly 100 people, with 60 cases referred. Initially, there was a great deal of skepticism from the leaders of the Islamic Center. But once the program was implemented, they were able to not only see the benefit, but to also continue the program. One last thing I'd like to add, and I would love to answer your questions. The programming that we are supporting is an effort to build outside of law enforcement. We are also concerned with a law enforcement approach, and therefore, under the leadership of our mayor, under the leadership of our city and city council, we in LA have set a different tone for the entire country. And to say that in order for us to work on preventing not only violent extremism, but all forms of violence, we must enable our communities, we must address hate, bias, and essentially build healthy communities, and that is precisely what we're doing.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jumana, and thank you for everyone who made time to come in and comment on this very important issue. A couple of quick questions, and then I'm going to have some comments as well.
Sure.
Can you address the transparency issue that's been brought up today?
Absolutely. We have, as I said, we have engaged far and wide on not just the issue of violent extremism, but more broadly on how we could better address hate and bias. What's really important to understand here is that violent extremism is not a Muslim problem. It is not a problem for the Muslim community. It is a problem for all communities. It impacts all communities. Our approach to this is our ability to address anything from neo-Nazi, white supremacist types of ideology that promotes violence, and all the way to international groups that promote an ideology of violence. And so in that, we have engaged academics, we have engaged members of the Muslim community, we have engaged organizations who advocate for social rights and civil liberties. We have also engaged other government partners, including the Department of Mental Health, Health and Human Services, and other experts who can shed light. And therefore, the way we have shaped our programming is very much well-informed. We have a formal community advisory committee, but we have also hosted a number of roundtables. We've engaged with one-on-one. We've actually did engage and invite CARE to several of the meetings. We have personally reached out, and we will continue to do so. And in fact, we do have a meeting scheduled next week, and we will continue to engage anyone and answer any questions from any group in any community.
Thank you. And there's been a claim today that the CVE is essentially a vehicle for police spying. Can you rebut that and describe the relationship with the LAPD or their participation or law enforcement of any kind's participation in this grant, if any, and what level of participation that is?
None exist. To the extent that we have focused the funding of this grant on building community programming, and as you could see from the CAO's report, the majority of funding is actually going to community-based programming. None of the money is going to law enforcement. Furthermore, there is no direct involvement of law enforcement of any of the programming. To the extent that through the programming, there is an immediate threat of violence to self and or to others, everybody, as you well know, is required to report that to law enforcement. And if I may also add that for law enforcement, this provides a space to refer individuals who are in need of those services. What we've unfortunately found is that this, over the past 10 years, has only approached from the prism of CT, which is a law enforcement prism. And that is a prism that criminalizes.
And Mr. Rue, I know you had some questions as well.
Yeah, let me just wrap up. Also, lastly, success, how will it be measured? How will it be managed?
We are working with evaluators from UCLA as well as several other researchers. We're also working with a number of academic institutes, including USC, and I know you've also received several letters of support from various partners and members of the community. But to the point of evaluation, we are going to be working with experts in evaluation techniques to not only evaluate process, but to also evaluate impact. I must also say that this is the first time that we're actually doing programming to this extent in the community, and therefore our bases are based on research that is focused on public health. And in terms of evaluating moving forward, we're looking to evaluate process as well as impact.
Okay. And let me just say lastly, Mr. Chair, that I think the anxiety is very understandable.
Absolutely.
Especially when we have a president that promotes extremism and violence himself. I mean, he's a very dangerous man, and I think we all recognize that.
Yes.
And he comes from a place of ignorance and fear, and he governs accordingly. However, in Los Angeles, and knowing the mayor as I have for many, many years, working for him for almost 10 years, many visits to the Islamic Center, the relationship has always been very strong with the Muslim community and many other communities of religious faith, as is my relationship with the Muslim community. It's very well established. I have complete confidence that accepting this grant is not tantamount to cooperation with the Trump administration in a way, shape, or form. Having said that, the anxiety and the concerns and the fear is understandable. The hissing is not. But we still have a lot of work to do, and if we focus on the mental health of individuals, then that is a very, very, I think, solid way to proceed. And I have confidence that we will use the grant money to serve the purposes that Los Angeles needs to fulfill, and not any sort of ideology of the Trump administration. So I am very cautiously optimistic that we'll be in good hands with the administration of this grant.
Great, thank you. Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Englander. I have lots of concerns about this. Is there a deadline why we're doing this today? Obviously, we can't.
So the grant performance period began August 1st, and as you well know,
last year.
Yes, as you well know, part of the process is for all and every grant we get from the federal government is to have an authority approval, and so that would be really in terms of programming. We already began the clock on August 1st.
So if we delayed it for a week or two, would that be detrimental to the grant?
I think it'd be detrimental to program delivery.
The program delivery, okay.
Given that we have a short period of time on the grant.
If we accept this money, is there midway in the program, I mean, if some of the concerns from the community groups are founded, can we stop the program and return the money?
Absolutely.
Is there any penalty?
Nope.
So we could stop midway. If we stop 6 months later, do we have to refund half the money?
If we stop 6 months later, we'd obviously have to fund whatever services or pay whatever services that were already delivered.
We would pay that back.
Not pay that, well, no. We would, so
we would
say you
give
stop
back
6 months in, you just don't continue drawing money.
Right. So roughly, let's say, if we only expended half the money, we give the other half back. So we could cancel this program at any time. Okay.
Which, by the way, not all grants offer that. In fact, we're going to get into one in a moment that doesn't have that.
Right. Has general fund been considered to? Well, the first question is this CVE program an extension of the pilot? The pilot that was spoke about before?
Safe Spaces is a pilot that piloted for 6 months and was funded through other funds. The continuation of the program will come through this CVE grant fund, but what I want to point out is that the program is actually expanding under a cross-cultural exchange community counseling center. And that center services a wide range of minority groups, including Farsi, Armenian-speaking, Spanish-speaking. And so what we're doing with Safe Spaces is really expanding its access to the broader community in the broader city.
So CVE is going to augment the Safe Spaces program?
Yes.
Has the department considered using general fund money to do exactly this instead of taking this CVE money?
I am not aware of general funds conversations. However, our office will be working with grant makers and foundations to sustain these programming beyond the seed funds from this grant.
Okay. And it seems like you're going to meet with some of the community groups next week, but from your previous answering, so you have been meeting with the community?
We have been consistently meeting with various members of the community.
And when we met, you also stated that the majority of the Muslim community is in support?
There is support from within the Muslim community. Obviously, there are those who see this, and unfortunately, there's much misinformation and there's divide, but there are those who do support it.
So in the interest of time, I know, Mr. Chair, you have some recommendations, but I want to say I'm very, very concerned about this, and with all this outpouring of concern, I wish the meeting that you're going to have next week was a week ago, not next week. I understand the time constraint. We're talking $425,000 here, which is not a lot of money, but at the same time, it is a considerable amount. And I'm concerned that in the program that you discussed and the pilot project that was done, and last week I was at the Sikh temple in my district showing my support for the community, and the mayor and the city council were fully in support of the Muslim community, and this program, this money, the CVE money, is supposed to go towards creating more safer communities and expanding outreach to them. But if the community at hand feels that this money is going to do the reverse, or if accepting this grant is going to do the reverse, I don't know what the benefit of that is. However, I'm assured with the amendment that the chairman's going to make, and the fact that 6 months from now, I would love for you to keep the transparency going and meeting with the community, because I will meet with the advocate groups who are having concerns. And if any of their concerns are founded, I'd be the first one to ask that we cancel this program.
Okay.
So the fact that we have that assurance, I am reluctantly be in support.
Okay, thank you. And based on, I think, the questions that my colleagues have already asked and have been answered, and the concerns from the community, and what I heard most of, if I could, my interpretation was, while it may be, and to use some of your words, the fruit of the poisonous tree, and to use the mayor's office, their words, although there are no strings and triggers attached to that, it's how the grant money is spent internally, not what's mandated and how it's spent. I would suggest the following, that the concern was mostly, although there were many, about transparency, is, first of all, last question before I go into my motion, how long is the grant funding program? Is it a year?
In July 2019.
Okay.
So it's a 2 years, it's a 2 years grant, but at this point, we're already in January.
So this is what I'd like to see. I'd like to see a report that's published publicly every quarter, specifically on where and who the money and how it's being used and the time spent. What information is being collected and who has access to that information. And that report, a full report that's made public for review in an effort to bring transparency and make sure that the concerns that were brought today, that you know exactly what's being done. And in a moment's notice, if there's questions or concerns, I assure you that one of us would bring forth a motion to bring it back to committee with the ability to turn off the program if there are questions that can't be answered, if the transparency doesn't seem to be forthcoming, and I think that addresses 90% of what you brought here today. And I will tell you, I would not have made that motion had you not all showed up today. And to hear your voices loud and clear of all your concerns, and I want to make sure, and we all want to make sure, that there is full transparency and disclosure, and that we know exactly, and you all know exactly, where and how this program is implemented and to what degree. And maybe perhaps through that process too, it doesn't just mean shutting it off if need be. It could be augmenting it or changing it or scaling it back or going different directions or getting your input to say, well, we didn't realize they're doing this. This is a great program. Maybe there's some other things we could do with it. So we can learn from it and not just find out 2 years later what happened, right? And so my motion would be to approve it, except for that it needs to have a transparency element with a published quarterly on-time report that's made available to the public of who, where, and how the money's being spent, what information's being collected, and who has access to that information.
Mr. Chair, can we add also if they could come back to the committee in 6 months with a, I know.
Sure, after the second report?
Yeah.
After the second quarterly report, we'll have that biannual report then at that point, come back to this committee. So we can certainly do that as well.
Sure, I mean, these are all doable things. In fact, part of any grant is...
We're about to vote on it, but I think we're good. With that, are there any other, and you say with any grant, be careful on...
On what I say about any grant?
Yeah.
Most
because,
grants.
Yeah, not all grants are made public and transparent and how the money's being spent. So I'll go forth with that motion. Okay, so that's approved with the amended motion on that.
So just for clarification, is that an instruction to the mayor for them to publish the
It's an
report?
instruction to approve this grant with that condition. So this grant is only approved by the council. It's going forward as a committee report to the council that it's under the condition that, and so it's not just an instruction for them to do it, it's also a condition of approval.
Also, with addition to the recommendations in the report?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your input. Okay, if I'm gonna, you can't yell, because remember, next time, this is going to come back, so we want to make sure that we don't disrupt it. We still have a couple items on the committee, so. All right, colleagues, with that, we have two more items.
10 minutes.
And we have 10 minutes. One is really important. It's going to take, well, they're both really important. But on item 3, and I wanted to have discussion on that, to the ITA report back on best practices, what I'd like to do is go ahead and move that to council, although I'm going to have some questions at council that we can bring you to the table at. And I apologize for the delay. So we'll go ahead and move item 3.
So moved.
So moved. Okay, and then item 8. And if I can ask you to keep your voices down as you show your way out, we do have, the meeting is ongoing.
DHS is racist.
Excuse me, thank you very much.
Shame on you.
Okay.
Shame. Rubber stamp body. Don't give a fuck about public.
All right, thank you very much. Sergeants, if you could please help them out. Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
So eloquent.
Yes,
Thank you. Very eloquent of you.
yes, okay. All right, we do have, Mr. Lima, nice to see you, as always. Mr. Gamboa, great to see you as well. I'm going to start with the general public, the public comment. We have 2 comment cards on this, and this is from Frank Lima and Tony Gamboa, so we'll start with you two before we go on to the department and to the CAO. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Englander and honorable council members. Tony Gamboa, president of UFLAC. I'm here to speak in support of the SAFER grant awarded to the department in the past August for more than $15 million. I want to first thank Chief Terrazas and our department management for working together with the mayor's office, the IAFF, and UFLAC to gather facts during the application process so that we put together a very strong proposal. As you know, during the massive budget cuts several years ago, we lost an enormous amount of field resources in the LAFD, which caused response times to rise and firefighters to be stretched dangerously thin. Over the past few years, through the leadership of Chief Terrazas and with the support of the mayor and the city council, including all of you here today, we have been rebuilding the department with the restoration of engine companies at fire stations 9, 35, 69, and 105. Now the SAFER grant will be instrumental in allowing our department to restore even more engine companies at fire station 1, 20, 73, and 75. The restoration of these engine companies and the additional staffing that will be provided by the SAFER grant funding will be instrumental in helping our firefighters in the field responded to nearly 500,000 emergency calls for service each year. On behalf of 3,200 proud men and women of the United Firefighters of the Los Angeles City, I want to offer my very special gratitude to IFF 10th District Vice President Frank Lima, who is here with us today and was instrumental in helping to push our LAFD SAFER grant application forward. I also want to give special thanks once again to the Public Safety Committee Chairman, Mitch Englander, and all of the members of this committee here today. Without your support of our firefighters and the LAFD, none of this would have been possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gamboa. Mr. Lima, would you like to add to that?
Sure, I wasn't expecting to speak, but, you know, it's not my first time in this committee. As you know, I spent a lot of years in here, and it's nice to come back as the former president of UFLAC with my current president, as I still remain an active member of the Los Angeles Fire Department. But now I'm in a position at our international, representing 47,000 firefighters from the Texas border to Guam. And, you know, I just want to say thank you. You know, the collaboration or the team effort to get this pushed across the line was what made it happen. The SAFER grant's been around for about 12 years, and the City of LA was 0 for 12. In the meantime, we were one of the deepest cut departments in the city and one of the deepest cut fire departments in the nation, as you know. So my first year in the IAFF, we were able to get the largest grant award in the nation, and that's $15.5 million that goes directly to hiring of firefighters. And that couldn't have happened without the partnership of, you know, really everyone at this table. Fire Chief Terrazas, you know, Tony Gamboa and Local 112, the CAO's office, and the mayor's office, specifically, you know, Mayor Garcetti, Drew Steinberg. But it also was a culture change to where the fire department management finally opened up and said, hey, let labor help. And once that happened, you know, we went from 0 for 12 to now we're 1 for 13, and we got a lot of millions of dollars coming in. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Chief.
Thank you, Chairman Englander and council members. Thank you for allowing us to come before you. I want to echo the statements of my partners here. Tony Gamboa from UFLAC and Frank Lima from IAFF have been absolutely instrumental in working together, in strategizing and checking the facts and looking for people to look at our application, and we were successful. We were batting zero. You know, we're 1 for 1 under Vice President Lima's leadership. This grant is a 60% from FEMA, 40% from the city. The grant from FEMA can be up to $15.5 million. The city match is up to 9.6. The total project cost is $25.1 million. This money is specifically for reimbursement for firefighters' salary and benefits. The $15.5 million is the largest SAFER grant awarded to a fire department this fiscal year. It will fund 48 new firefighter positions. The location of these engines were based on call load. Our firefighters will be assigned to those stations. We need position authority and funding for 12 captains and 12 engineers to fully staff our engine company complement. The remaining 24 SAFER firefighters will staff fast response vehicle, a fast response vehicle at 4 additional fire stations. This is a 3-year grant, and this requires a maintenance of firefighter field staffing of 2,759. So thank you for letting this come before you.
Thank you. I know, Mr. Rue, you had a question?
I just have one question. I just want to say thank you to the brass and to the firefighters, all the firefighters. I mean, this grant, obviously, with what's been happening in the past couple of months, it's a no-brainer. But I just have one quick question, and I'm fully supportive of this, because anything we could do to leverage these monies, federal monies, and the fact that you guys got it first time in 12 years, I mean, it's a no-brainer here. But there's a discrepancy between the fire department's report, and just to the chief, where the city share is $9 million, and the federal share, it's 13.6 or $15 million. But the CAO report came in and said that the city's cost is going to be $26 million, and the federal funding is going to be about $10 million. What's the...
And if you can, what I was going to do is, I had a lot of the same questions, is actually, that's I think more the CAO side, is to bring the CAO up, to go through the CAO report. May make sense at this time? Okay. Yeah, we're right there.
I mean, either way.
But I've got a few questions, and the recommendation is suggestion on that as well. And so I think I'm going to just cut to it, probably, and just go through my recommendation. First and foremost, I mean, this is, appreciate all of you coming forward on this. My biggest concern is that we're pressed against the clock when this came through, and this really goes to the mayor's office on this. This was approved in August, accepted, and we were granted in August, and here we are almost 6 months later, and we just heard about this 48 hours ago. I just got the CAO report last night. In fact, after hours. It was the first time I'd ever seen it. In fact, it was the first time it was been done. There are significant general fund impacts on this. There's no doubt we need more firefighters. We're coming through the most horrific season we've seen, certainly not only in my lifetime, but in California history. And beyond the heroism, and it's not over yet, as we've seen just from yesterday, and the impact of the rains, and certainly without going through all of that, looking at specific issues, there are a lot of questions, I think, with the actual grant. I will tell you, all of you, that this is by no means the first time that I've said to the mayor's office that why is it that it takes 5 or 6 or 8 or even a year later, months, to come to committee after they've already been aware that we've accepted a grant. We don't have the ability to ask a single question, get another report back, especially when there's a general fund obligation that's never been budgeted. That's a serious concern, and it's got to stop. Why is it that grants, when we apply for them, don't come to committee, and we hear about it after the fact? Why is it that the actual contract for this grant isn't a public document that this committee has yet received or had the ability to read? Those are concerns. Those are concerns that also were right up against the mayor's budget in coming out. Don't even know that this ongoing obligation is funded, if the pension costs are included. So it's far more than $26 million, and we're not aware. Got some questions about what their capability or ability is in terms of tide and restraint to the grant dollars. It says it's for firefighting only, not EMS, which is about 85% of our workload. Some concerns or questions about that. So rather than say no or move it through with no recommendation, or to approve it and sort of what I would call rubber stamping it, we probably have from where I sit as a chair of public safety, the 3 most respected individuals sitting before me that have worked on this and that I've known for many years, that I trust, except it's not about just that, right? And I have a slew of questions. So what I would like to do is actually ask for a CLA report back on a lot of the questions that we could work through, to come back here in conjunction with the CAO report and dedicate a lot more time to make sure that we get this right. And so I'd like to hold this in committee and get a CLA report back. Will be that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to hold this here and try to get that back as soon as possible, so we can actually do a deeper dive, because there are even things in the CA report that says unidentified, unknown. Well, we don't want to wake up tomorrow and say we're going to have to stop hiring firefighters because we tied our hands, and we've got to stop hiring EMS, or we've got to take ambulances offline because we got down a road we weren't sure of. And so there's some unknowns, and I want to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's on this, because it's too important to get wrong. And so my question is to the CLA's office is how quickly do we think we can get a report back to this committee? And I know if we're delayed a little bit, we're up against a clock, but we have the ability under this grant to do that. So there may be some initial cost in doing that, but in the long term, I think it benefits all of us.
Good morning, Council Member Chair. Matthias Farfan for CLA. If I instructed to report back, working with the department, if provided all the information timely, I think a week, we could come back in a week or 2.
Great. So let's schedule this for the next committee. So we don't, rather than say, let's wait till we get the report back and ask more questions and we'll figure out when to schedule it, let's just go ahead and move it to the next agenda. so we can have that report and be able to do a deeper dive into some, again, we want to make sure we're not cutting our right hand off to save our left. And we got to be very cautious, eyes wide open on this one. Because there are, unlike the last grant we talked about, this one actually has very specific strings and triggers and what we can and can't do in terms of constant staffing, in terms of what those individuals can do, what happens if we attrit out more than what we're hiring in, what happens to the drill towers, what happens to, there's a lot of questions we haven't gone through, and I want to make sure we get this one right. On this too, to the grants office, since August, nobody's reached out to me suggesting that this is so big and we haven't gotten in so many years. As the chair of the committee, I should be briefed on it. I mean, it literally came out of left field. That's not on the department or on the union, but to the grants office. That's just not right. And I would ask, Chief, that if you're aware of these things, that you tell them up front when you're aware of it. Make sure you reach out to the chair of the committee on this, because it's not right to come in at the 11th hour and then, because we're the ones ultimately held responsible, and also as vice chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, I don't want to be up against a wall saying we're going to stop hiring because we accepted this grant and now we're not going to have as many of other type of either apparatus or engines out in the field because of unknown certainty. So I want to make sure we get this right.
Mr. Chair, if I may, your instructions are responsible, sensible, and logical, and we should absolutely follow them. My question is, what kind of deadlines might we be looking at in relation to receiving this grant?
And I think that's a question of the CAO's office.
That may actually be more specific for the fire department, but the department is looking at starting the academy funded by this grant on January 22nd.
And we could start in February. I mean, the department's looking at that, but we could certainly bump that as well if we needed to, correct?
Yes, the grant will start 180 days after the award, which starts around January 28th. So the longer you wait, the more limited the amount of time that you will.
Okay, but over 3 years, if we're talking about a couple weeks, it's insignificant.
I'm just making you aware of
it. Okay, well noted.
And especially if this committee meets in 2 weeks.
Correct.
Then that's reasonable.
Right. Yeah. And if we have to have a special committee, I'm willing to do that as well. It's too important. No, I think we're good. We have to get down to council. Do we have any last minute? Okay, then that'll be the recommendation from this committee, and we'll go ahead and do that.
All right.
Okay, great, excellent. Thank you very much. We have a number of public cards that were held over from people that were here on item 5 that wanted to speak on anything but item 5. Are any of those individuals still here wishing to speak? If you guys want to come on up now. If that's only for the ones who already filled out cards. It's only for the ones who already filled out cards. You guys are good. You can go down. I can handle general public comment. Yeah.
If I knew you were going to do that, I didn't have to ask questions.
I know. I'm sorry. There's some serious issues. It's great, but we need to know what.
Well, yeah, we have to have those blanks filled.
It looks bad.
Sure.
26 million.
It's not 26. It's a lot more than 26.
It was considered. It was approved of this.
By the way, it's not even 10 anymore. It's more than 26.
He said it very
Are we talking about like 2 million? But like, what are we really talking
It
about?
was very first thing.
We need to know we need to know what we're doing. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Again, this is general public comment as it pertains to this committee, but not on item 5. So please, if you could just state your name.
Rob Kwan. I wanted to speak about the state secrets privilege. It's something that we've seen up close in front in Southern California. About 10 years ago or so in Orange County, there was an FBI informant thrown into a mosque, and eventually those mosque goers reported him to the FBI for his advocacy for violent terrorism. When they sued, the government invoked the state secrets privilege, which wholly prevented that from ever being heard in court. So when we take money from the Department of Homeland Security and involve them, that's what we're concerned about. If we're viewing the United States to have checks and balances, the rule of law, and a way of remedying any kind of transgression here, the state secrets privilege would prevent that. So I think that was something that just gives a little bit more context about our concerns with some of the grants we're talking about.
All right. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Carlos Amador with the California Immigrant Policy Center, and I'm also a resident of the 12th District. I wanted to speak, one of the issues that I think it's important to recognize is the importance of getting community input before making decisions on different programs that have to do with the city and also with the community that is impacted. I think many community members have felt unheard and have felt that processes are very rushed in regards to deciding on programs and grants. And so specifically, the Muslim community has felt unheard today and in the past couple of weeks, rushing through a process that will have direct impact in the next year and a half. So I ask the committee to please take a moment to step back and listen to the community before making decisions that will have tremendous impact on them.
Okay, thank you.
I also would like to make a general comment about process and how issues come before this committee and providing the community with sufficient notice and sufficient time to speak really on some of these issues. I think matters such as the CVE grant should have, and I'm not just speaking about this, but should have come before a hearing and not just for folks to come and be able to quickly, respond in a minute. The mayor's office was here and they were given ample time, and we would have liked an opportunity to respond to some of those comments. Some of those comments were not correct, and we need to put that into the public record. So we do think that this process needs to be slowed down. We need to give the community time to speak and to respond to some of the claims the mayor's office is making. And we have absolutely no idea what the program looks like, the mayor's office. We appreciate transparency and we appreciate the motion for more transparency, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. We really need a lot more, and we would really ask, that before this goes to the council, that the opportunity is there for a proper hearing on what this program means.
Okay, thank you.
As the largest Muslim civil rights organization with 7 staff attorneys, KRLA had a policy of reporting all hate crimes and incidents within the city and county of LA to the Human Rights Commission. This information consisted of data that really impacted the most vulnerable in our community. In 2016, I made the decision to stop reporting to the commission when I became aware that Jumana Silian Saba, who was a human relations advocate, was hired by the city to further its CVE efforts. The decision to stop reporting was affirmed when we received documents that clearly show that questions are being asked of community members through safe spaces and through the Building Healthy Communities initiative that directly ask about involvement with federal law enforcement. We will continue to stop reporting these incidents because we cannot put our community members at risk. And Councilmember Rue, I think you had that correct gut feeling of not approving this and delaying it for a week. I would ask that the council members not put this on consent calendar when it goes to the city council and allow others to make comment.
Thank you very much. And I believe that concludes the general public comment. Were there any other folks that already filled out general public comment cards that didn't speak? No. Okay. Then that concludes general public comment. That concludes the agenda items, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.